In November 2010, Martha Lane Fox gave her report back to the government. She was asked to write a report by the last government about all digital, look at all digital across the whole of the government estate and write a report on it. She released that report in November 2010. It was really short, it was only about 15 pages. It called for revolution, not evolution, and crucially for us, it contained this line: the new CEO for digital in the Cabinet Office should have absolute authority over the user experience across all government online services. As Andy said, I'm Ben Terrett. I'm the Head of Design for the Government Digital Service, which was the thing that was set up on the back of that report. I've only got 20 minutes. I've got loads and loads of slides, so I'm going to have to talk really quickly. I've also got a cold and a sore throat, so I'm really worried that I'm going to descend into a coughing fit or lose my voice, so please bear with me. I'm also paranoid that I'm going to get the facts and figures wrong, so I'm going to put my laptop up here so I can see my notes. But I'm going to talk to you today about designing government services. I'm going to talk about gov.uk, which some of you might know about, so apologies if you've heard it before. Lots of you won't know about it. It's the single domain for government that we're designing. That's the first part of the talk. I'm also going to talk about this. This was a thing I wrote in the Government Service Design Manual that said don't hire people that emphasise the terms UX or creative in their CVs. Created a bit of a storm, probably by some of you in the room, so it feels unfair if I don't come here and fess up and just explain a bit more about what that was about. So we're going to talk about that in the second half of the talk. It's going to be loads of fun. Back to Martha's report. It's really important that we start there. Martha's report was called Digital by Default. As I said, it explicitly asked for revolution, not evolution. Government digital is in such a bad state, we sort of need to start again. You know, we need a revolution, we can't just sort of slowly move on. She made 4 really clear recommendations. Number 1, set up GDS. Create a thing at the heart of government in the Cabinet Office. Cabinet Office is effectively the same thing as number 10 Downing Street. It sits at the heart of government and is supposed to make government work better. And we're the bit that's supposed to make it work better digitally. So she said, set a thing up called Government Digital Service in the Cabinet Office. There's loads of brilliant design and developer talent in the UK. We should use those. Let's not outsource this to large American corporations, which is effectively what's happening. Let's set that up. So we set that up, that's what I'm part of. Number 2 is fixed publishing. By publishing, she really means the 2 huge government websites, which are DirectGov, which is where you kind of go to find out information about schools and tax and buy your car tax and all that kind of stuff, and BusinessLink, which is obviously where you get business information from. Those are 2 huge citizen-facing government websites. And then all the department websites, and there are hundreds of those. There are 24 government ministerial departments that have websites. There are over 300 agencies. In total, there were over 2,000 government websites. We're making just 1. That's what she meant by fixed publishing. By fixed transactions, that is things like buying your car tax or registering for a driving test or booking a prison visit or any of those things. Ways you transact with government, where you give them information and government gives you some information back or sometimes money. Fixed transactions, that's mostly what we're doing this year. And then number 4 is go wholesale. If we're honest, we're not quite sure what that means yet, but it's obviously things like APIs, and it's being extremely open, and it's kind of opening this out somewhere and letting other people build stuff on the stuff we're building. That's sort of what that means. And crucially, she said, build a single place for all this. So just don't, like I said, don't have over 2,000 websites, don't have 4, don't have 5, let's just have 1 single domain, which is gov.uk, where all this stuff lives. 1 single user experience, 1 look and feel, 1 language, 1 place where all this sits. And one of the reasons she said that is because people that interact with government shouldn't have to understand government to be able to find something out. Shouldn't be sat there thinking, which department deals with this? Some departments it's really, really easy, but on other things it's not. If you want to know, are they going to sell off the school field, my kids' school? Does that Department of Education do that? Does that Department of Environment do that? Is that the Treasury that does that? In all likelihood, it's probably a combination of all 3. But you shouldn't have to worry about that. It should just be 1 place where you can go and find that out. And again, crucially for us and the people in this room, not one person really, 1 organisation is in charge of the user experience. This is really, really important. So if you are buying car tax, you're effectively paying for something, that should be the same experience as if you are paying a court fine. If you're booking a driving test, it's just a booking thing, people on the web have kind of worked out how to do that. That should be a good experience, and it should be the same as if you were booking a prison visit. You know, we shouldn't be recreating, we shouldn't have 8 different versions of doing that. We should just do one system of doing that. I'm just going to play you 2 quick 30-second videos now to kind of explain gov.uk and tell you a little bit what that's about. It's kind of easier than showing screenshots and
stuff. Gov.uk is a new website. It's the best place to find government services and information.
Gov.uk makes it simpler, clearer and faster for people to get what they need from government.
It's got some step-by-step guides for things like employing new staff, which can make some complicated processes much easier to understand.
You can work out things like maternity pay with the help of some very simple tools.
And for things like bank holidays, we put the information most people are looking for right in the middle of the page.
Gov.uk, it's simpler, clearer and faster. Have a look at www.gov.uk.
That's the main citizen-facing bit. There's another bit which we sort of only really internally call Inside Government, which just describes all the ministerial sites that we're putting into one. So it's the same site, but because that launched a month after that, we made a different video for that, so I'll play you that one.
Central government in the UK is made up of around 400 organisations.
Each of these have websites where they publish information about who they are and what they do.
We're bringing all of these websites together onto a single place on gov.uk.
Some have already moved, more will be joining soon.
When we've finished, you won't need to know which bit of government does what in order to find out what government is doing on any given subject.
Announcements, publications and policies will all be together in one place.
You can still look up information about a specific government organisation, like the Ministry of Defence or the Department for Education, and see everything it's working on.
Or you'll be able to see things from lots of organisations gathered together around topics, like everything on climate change or everything relating to crime and justice.
Inside Government makes it simpler, clearer and faster to find out how government works, see who is working on what, and stay updated when things change. See for yourself at www.gov.uk/government.
I love playing these videos because that one was in November, and on that front thing there it said that 2 of 24 ministerial departments have moved over. Today that's 19. I think later this week it will be 20, and by the end of April it will be 24. So by the end of April, all the ministerial departments will be on the gov.uk platform. That's something that people said we would never do. But when Martha launched the report, people said, yeah, you'll do most of that, but you'll never be able to do all of that. So by the end of April, we'll have done that. So I just want to talk to you about some of the kind of design work and design patterns and stuff we've done. This is obviously an old screen grab from DirectGov. We turned off DirectGov and Business Link on October the 17th. So they no longer exist and they're replaced by gov.uk. DirectGov was not a bad website. It was just kind of constrained by the process in which it was made. So it was about 5 years old. 5 years ago, tried to do a similar thing to what we're doing, but it kind of managed to merge tens of websites rather than thousands of websites into one. And it did a pretty good job of that. The kind of contract, that the way that it was built, only allowed for updates every kind of couple of years. So you can just imagine if a website was built 5 years ago and you could only update it every couple of years. 5 years ago there was no iPad, the iPhone had just come on the scene. You can imagine, how sort of outdated that feels now. But they were sort of trying to do the right kind of stuff. But this is a really good example. Lots of people, Tom and other people have referenced this in their talks, how we're really focusing hard on the user need. This is the bank holiday page. What we found out, it's kind of obvious, but what we found out really clearly by looking at search logs and looking at Google Analytics and looking at user stats and doing user interviews, looking for those desired paths that Tom mentioned, when people get to this page, 85% of them arrive here via Google. They've Googled bank holiday. When they Google bank holiday, what they really mean is when is the next one. They're not really that bothered when the one is in 2015. They just want to know when is the next one. Now, I do this presentation all the time, and I can never work out where it is, but it's it's back in the middle there, 6th of May, early bank holiday 2013, it's bang in the middle. What people mean when they go to that page is when is the next bank holiday. So we've redesigned that to be like that. And obviously that changes. After that changes and moves to the next one. That's the key information that people are after there. You can also download that and add that to your iPad or your Google Calendar if you want and have them all there. We still list all the others. It's really important that we have all the other information there. It's important because we're the government and we decide when the bank holidays are. And they're not at the same times every year. They move. If Christmas Day is on Saturday, they move. It's slightly different in Scotland to how they are in England. But it's government that makes that decision. So we must be the authoritative voice of when they are. And so we do list all the ones down in 2014 and 2015. And that's important. If you were planning a wedding next year, you might want to know when the August bank holiday was. If you're opening a restaurant later in the summer, you might want to know when the August bank holiday was. So it's important that we list those. But the key information that people want there is when's the next one. So we put that up nice and big. And brilliantly, it's only in about 2 weeks. So, it's next week. If you do this talk in September, you have to wait until December for the next bank holiday. It's kind of depressing, but this one's good. So, because we set the bank holidays, we have a belief that government should only do what only government can do. So, if someone else can do it, they should tell you about that. Bank holidays, tax rates, only the government can tell you authoritatively what that is, so we should do that. We shouldn't do things like tell you how to keep bees. Direct government's full of this stuff. And again, it's not really the fault of direct government, it's just they had a content management system that kind of allowed anyone to publish whatever they wanted. And so departments would hear something, some minister would say something about bees, quick, get the bees page up. They would publish something about bees. We don't think government should have to tell you about bees. There are loads of places you can find out about that. Likewise, if it gets cold, we don't think the government should tell you to pull on a pullover. Maybe Mum tells you that one, I don't know. The government shouldn't tell you that. And a brilliant one, which we only found a couple of weeks ago, there was a whole page about waves. And how to identify waves, we only found this on the National Archives when we were going back at the old direct government looking at something else. I wish I could play little animations of different waves, it's incredible. But anyway, I can't remember what the stats are, but it's over half the content we've got rid of because we don't think it's something that the government should do. If it's something that only government should do, then we should do that. If it's something else, someone else should do it, or we should link to it. There would be other third parties, private or other public sector people who are doing that better than us, and we should let them do that. I'm now just going to take you through a couple of pages. There's just really no good way of showing screenshots in a conference or on a big screen like this. So I'm just going to kind of reel through a couple. And how much of time, Andy? All right. Okay, I'm all right. Okay, about halfway through. I'm just going to take you through some screenshots. It's just kind of screenshots to give you a feel for the site. There's some close-ups of stuff, typography and stuff like that. There's a whole other talk I could talk to you about typography. We made a decision really early on to use web fonts. I always say this, everyone else looks at me like maybe I'm making it up, but I think we're the largest website using web fonts at this depth and at this scale. Because we use one web font, basically. We use one typeface, we use one web font across the whole site. We've had, to give you an idea of numbers, we we had a beta running before, kind of the big launch was in October. Between October and now, we've had over 100 million visits to the site. And we use web fonts everywhere. So obviously people like Google use web fonts, but they don't use it everywhere. We use it for absolutely everything. So the same design pattern again there for VAT. There's a detailed guide. This is the ministerial pages. So lots of these ministerial pages, there's basically kind of one look and feel now. People in general are much less interested in ministries than government thinks they are. They're not really aware of the different ministries and what they do. They're not really that interested. But you can change this, and photography becomes really important. The MOD are absolutely brilliant at photography, and their homepage always looks great. But you can change this design. There's a new feature coming out. You have to change this design slightly, and different departments can have bigger pictures. But it's one consistent look and feel. This is kind of what we would call a topic area for the G8, which is happening later this year. In the old world, that would have been a whole new website, or probably a couple of websites. Now it's a kind of a topic on the sort of official government website. We use topics quite a lot. You can now find out in one place what the government is doing about climate change. You couldn't find that out before. There's now a policy section. You can now see in one place, on one page, what the government's policy is on, say, Afghanistan. You couldn't find that out before. It's quite unbelievable. I haven't got it in this presentation, but you would have to go to 9 different websites to begin to have an idea of what the government was doing in Afghanistan, and you still then wouldn't be clear. There'll be something on the Foreign Office, there'll be something on the MOD, there'll be something on DFID, there'll be something on number 10, there'll be something on the Deputy Prime Minister, there'll be all these different things that still look clear. There's now one place that we can find all this stuff out. Data and analytics is incredibly important to us, and that kind of performance data. If you go, I can see these URLs I've just put in the bottom there so you can check this stuff out, but if you go to gov.uk/performance, we publish not all of it, but most of the kind of data daily, basically. So that's not, but if you go there today, it's yesterday's data. It talks about our traffic, it talks about our visitors. We're already getting lots more traffic than Business Link and DirectGov, which is interesting because we didn't really think that would happen, and we've got lots less content. So it's quite interesting. But all that data is published daily, and we were doing much more on that. At the moment, it's just kind of numbers, but there's going to be more analytical. You should be able to delve in, see which pages are performing, which pages not performing. We passionately believe that all this stuff should be open. I showed somebody else this recently, and they said, "Wow, this is great. This is brilliant. You should put this live. You should publish that." Well, yeah, I'm showing it to you on the web. It's live. And they thought it was kind of a private Cabinet Office thing that we had behind a password or something. It's not. It's all out there. Everything we do is on GitHub. The URL for that's coming up in a minute because I can't remember. The repository is called AlphaGov. Everything is on GitHub. People go in there and make changes regularly. Feel free to do that if you think we could do something better, suggest something. There's just an example of different kind of design patterns. The G8, the ministry, the data, a kind of a guide to starting a business. But hopefully you can see that sort of consistent user experience coming across there. Another one of our principles is to be consistent but not uniform. So you don't want to be so uniform we get constrained. Some of these things are really quite different. A detailed guide on how to export technology is very different from someone who just wants to know what the bank holiday is. So we need to be consistent but not kind of constrain ourselves. And of course it all works on mobile. All fully responsive, mobile first, whatever we're calling that this week. I'm not really bothered about that, to be honest, what we call it, or about the terms. What I'm concerned about is if I'm in a car showroom and I've just bought a car and the guy's added on 25% VAT, I think, well, I don't think that's right. Should I be able to check that on my phone? Yes, of course I should. If I'm on the way to a job interview and I'm on the bus and I want to check what the minimum wage is, should I be able to look that up on my phone? Yes, of course I should. So, driven by the user need there, rather than by some trend for technology or design or UX, just what is the user need, should be able to look that up on the phone. So the whole site works on all different screen sizes. We've had some success. I won't kind of dwell on this kind of stuff, so we've only got 20 minutes. We've had some success. We've been nominated for the Design Museum's Design of the Year, which is incredible and a huge achievement for the whole team. Find out later this week whether we've won it in our category, which is really exciting. We talk a lot about this great British heritage of design projects. The thing that struck me when we started doing this is Britain has this amazing heritage of great public sector design projects that was possibly lost in the 80s and the 90s. So we talk about that a lot and we try and learn from those things. The Chief Map is one we talk about. The user experience on there is incredible and invisible and seamless. You forget about it. You don't even think it's designed. It's just, it just exists. The road signs are another brilliant one. This is me with Margaret Calvert, who designed these road signs in the 60s. They did a very similar thing to what we're doing. In the late 50s, every town in the country could make their own road signs. Lots of them were similar, but they could make their own ones. The government suddenly realised with the advent of motorways this was a terrible idea, may even end up causing accidents, and they commissioned someone to make one system, which is now copied around the world. If you go to anywhere in the world, they use the same system and the same colours, and there's slight sort of local variations, but it's based on that same system. We're nowhere near as good as any of those projects yet, and I'm not saying we are at all, but what I'm saying is we feel that we should reference that kind of heritage and that kind of history and work towards doing something like that. Margaret's kind of been a sort of unofficial advisor to the team. What she's been brilliant at is reminding us that how important this is to people's everyday lives. This isn't live obviously, but it's a video, but it does run live. It just tells us what pages people are clicking on. It's delayed because there's too many, you wouldn't be able to read it. But it gives you an idea. If you watch that for 5 minutes, it's benefits, it's jobs, it's schools, benefits, it's jobs, it's car tax, it's benefits, it's jobs, it's bank holidays, it's jobs. All the time, it just remembers you that what we should be focusing on. It's not a project about graphic design or web design. This is a project about helping people get what they need from government as quick as possible. We talk a lot about the unit of delivery being the team. Get a team of people, get the right team of people, get a team together, get that team working together, and we can worry less about terms like responsive design or so on and so on. We can worry less about that. We get the team that will work. This is just some shots of the team in action. I'm just going to talk about the team and how we work. Some of you might find it incredibly boring. Hopefully, some of you will find it interesting. People tell me it's kind of interesting. We have a heavy bias for designing in browser. Again, we're not religious about any of this stuff. There are people that use wireframes and people that use Photoshop, but very, very, very little use of that. We just get to browser as quickly as we possibly can. That there is one guy who's really a front-end developer, possibly even a back-end developer. The other guy with the sketchbook is much more what you traditionally call a visual designer. He used to work at Airsight, quite a well-known sort of animation design company. They are sketching ideas and then putting them straight in the browser. There's no wireframing, there's no kind of mocking up, there's no Photoshop. We're getting that in the browser as quickly as we possibly can. And then, as Tom referenced, where possible, we're launching that as quickly as we possibly can and testing it with real users. We have a truly multidisciplinary team. One of the things we did really early on was to kind of merge design and front end. There was sort of designers and there was sort of front end people. It became really clear to me that those two don't work together. We're not going to get anything done. We're certainly not going to get anything done quickly. So we merged those together. But you've got a real scale on there from a young guy who's just graduated from Central St. Martin's and is great in After Effects and can do that kind of stuff. He's very traditional visual designer really. To someone at the other end who would possibly call themselves a back-end developer in other organisations, all the way through to interaction designers, front-end developers, all that lot. We've got that whole scale of people, but it's really multidisciplinary. And not just in the design team. In GDS we work in product teams and people sit with content people and policy people and people that are new to the civil service and have come from places like Airsight and working with civil servants who've been there for 20 years, working in Whitehall. It's that multidisciplinary. So there's some kind of culture change going on. This is developers outside number 10. Government has sort of had to get used to a different type of civil servant, a different type of culture. There's 250 people in GDS. We've got a lot of work to do, a lot of websites to fold in. But there's also policy people, and there's HR and finance and all those kind of things. But so there's 250 of us, which in government terms is tiny, by the way. But there's a slight culture change in how we work, and there's a slight culture change in attitudes, which is really healthy. Kind of talked about that. Tom earlier referenced design arts. Which I think he got from our third design principle. We published a set of design principles, which again the URL's there. The third one is design with data. And again, we're really clear, like Tom said, we must look at data, but we must be careful because the data won't tell you exactly what you need to know. And it's that old thing of if you ask people what they want, they can only really answer that based on what they've already seen. So we might have to invent new things. But the design path is a handy way of how people hack around what you build, try and get to what they really want. So we just try and find that really quickly. And that's led us to kind of talk a lot about information design. We talk a lot about we're designing information. This is information that people want. It's not really a web design thing. It's information design, and it's on the web at the moment, and the browser's still the most popular thing, and the mobile's really creeping up. That'll overtake very, very soon, but who knows what that will be in 5 years' time, or 10 years' time. But it'll still be information. It'll still be information that people want from government. So we talk about that. We're not pushing pixels around the screen. And this is why I don't really like people to sit in Photoshop. It's too easy to just nudge things up and down a bit. Just move that to the side like that. We're not doing that. We're just getting the information out for people. And this is a picture a friend sent of me, just going to Just want to talk about UX for a bit. I've got 5 minutes. I hope Andy doesn't drag me off when I'm in this bit. This is a controversial bit. Those are our design principles. Please check those out if you haven't seen those already. I'd love to talk about those for another hour. That's a whole other talk. They go into details there and they're backed up with examples. They've had loads and loads of traction on the internet, which again is just an internal thing really, but we published it because we believe in being open about everything. They've had loads of kind of traction that we never thought they would get, but please do have a look at those URLs there. The number one is start with needs, and importantly, user needs, not government needs. It's on the official government website, it says it. Start with needs, user needs, not government needs. That's the number one for a really good reason. That's the most important thing. We're a user-focused organisation. Users are the most important thing at GDS. I stuck that up in a window a couple of months ago because we had this meeting about user personas. I was just getting too angry about user personas. What does that mean? These people are users. We stuck that up and you see the people walk past. It's brilliant. That's now kind of gone a little bit viral, and at the Ministry of Justice they're building a similar thing to build their kind of digital service. They put this one up. From the back, they've got an amazing office with amazing views, and they can see Buckingham Palace, so they put that up. We released a thing about a month ago called the Government Service Design Manual. This is the equivalent of the BBC's GEL, but it goes slightly further than that, and it talks about how to set up a team, who needs to lead your organisation, how to do user research, all that stuff. It's not just design patterns, although that's in there. And this is where I controversially said, avoid CVs that emphasise the terms UX and creative. It got loads of flack on Twitter, I got loads of crap. And it was kind of a sentence that I wrote. If I admit, I wrote it quite quickly. What I meant, but I didn't explain, what I meant was, what concerns me is that government departments have to hire this digital capability to sort of implement what we're doing. Some government departments may only have the room in the design team for one person. I wouldn't want that one person to be someone who just talked loads about UX and who made wireframes and didn't really make anything else and just tried to persuade the organisation about UX. That is partly because we've sort of won that argument. That line in Marshall's report that we should have control over the user experience, that makes that so important and kind of wins that argument. And partly because if you can only hire one person, I'd rather that was a front-end developer really that made stuff and got stuff out there. But I didn't explain that well at all. This is one blog where I got loads of stick for it. So I wrote a kind of, I haven't got time to read actually, but I wrote, kind of thing, explain what I mean. And I said, okay, that makes a lot more sense. Thanks for clearing that up. So I said, you know what, I'm going to go into GitHub because the government service manual is on GitHub. I'm going to go into GitHub and I'm going to change that.